Whether Marcus Mariota can lead the Commanders to a win on Sunday may have less to do with his own abilities and much more to do with his offensive line's ability to handle an aggressive Raiders pass rush. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders. I am David Harrison, your guy on the ground covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9. I'm right here with you 5 days a week. You can also find me at Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com, and you can follow me on X at DHarrison82. I want to thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or your first view, and a special thank you to all of the everydayers. Those of you who come through for every single episode, appreciate you coming through for yet another one here today. If it's your first time, thanks for finding the show. Hopefully you like what you hear enough to come back again and join us real soon. Coming up on today's episode, we're going to break down the Commanders' versatile style, how it gives them an advantage over the Raiders. We're going to dive into critical one-on-one matchups, but first we have to start with the biggest story of the week, the Commanders' quarterback situation. All that is coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And it's all brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers, you can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. With Jayden Daniels' status for Sunday in serious doubt, such serious doubt that I don't think he's going to play. I was on local DC radio with Adam Epstein on Thursday. He asked me to put a percentage on it. I said 5%, not to be cute because Jayden Daniels wears number 5, although it did dawn on me later that it was kind of cute. But more so just never say never type of deal. But, you know, if we're being real, I put it at 0%. But there is a never say never element. So 5%, I think, is probably where we're going to go to. But so with his status in serious doubt, obviously, for Sunday, the immediate future of the Commanders rests on quarterback Marcus Mariota and his ability to execute Kliff Kingsbury's offense on Sunday, which we've seen him execute multiple times during last season. He did it pretty well in those opportunities, so confidence that he could do it here in this opportunity. So Jayden Daniels, again, uncertain, but Dan Quinn calls him, quote-unquote, truly day-to-day with the knee injury that he suffered during a scramble in the Green Bay Packers game. I know there was a lot of conversation about which play exactly it happened. If you go back and remember, he's running away from Micah Parsons, kind of looking back at him as he's running from him, turns around just in time to see a DB coming in low, tries to avoid him as best as he can, but ends up getting contact with that knee. And apparently that's where the injury actually happened. Head coach Dan Quinn also stated that Jayden Daniels threw on the field, but did not practice Wednesday, did not practice Thursday. And, you know, DQ saying what DQ always says, we're going to take it all the way to Friday to make a status. At this point in time, I would probably expect Jayden Daniels to be listed as doubtful, if not just completely ruled out. You know, this team, they're going to play the coach game. They're going to play the mystery game as much as they can, but they're not going to do it so far to the point where they just flat out break the rules, right? So if there's just no chance, like there's no pregame workout that Jayden Daniels can go through and all that stuff, you know, Dan Quinn has said that he does need to see Jayden Daniels on the practice field before he can even start to feel comfortable about playing him in a game. So if that doesn't happen, you know, all the way through Friday, then there's a chance that Jayden Daniels goes into the weekend, Friday afternoon, listed as out for this game. But if Dan Quinn can, because he's a coach in the NFL, they're all going to try to get an edge. If he can get away with it, a doubtful designation, maybe even a questionable, though it's questionable whether they could elevate him to questionable. But either way, at least at a minimum tomorrow afternoon until we find out for sure. But again, Jayden Daniels just not really expecting him to be out there. So, of course, the contingency plan then turns to Marcus Mariota, who's been getting all of the first team reps in practice. He's been the starting quarterback in practice, all that stuff, quote unquote, preparing mentally to execute Kliff Kingsbury's offense. As far as confidence is concerned, Dan Quinn said confidence is through the roof. And honestly, when you're around the team, this is another thing that I told Adam on the radio. You know, I've been around teams who lost their starting quarterback. I've been around teams who are missing their starting quarterback, even for just a period of time in training camp. And a lot of those times you can feel it, man. You can feel the way that they operate, the way they kind of move, the way they talk, the way they interact with the media. You can kind of feel that this is a team without their starting quarterback. This week with this team, honestly, it hasn't really felt like that. You would not think just by interacting with these guys that they're a team that not only is probably going to play without their starting quarterback this weekend, but also lost defensive end Dietrich Wise for the season, lost Austin Eckler for the season, and have numerous other injuries that are on the injury report that they have to monitor and be concerned with. And I don't think that's a lack of confidence, faith, love, or whatever in any of those other guys. I think what it is an understanding that when you hear Dan Quinn and this team preach brotherhood and unit over individual and all that stuff, that it's real. And so when it's unit over individual, then as long as the unit is intact, which again, the unit is still here, then there's going to be a level of confidence to what they're doing and or how they're doing it. Kliff Kingsbury in his press conference on Thursday said of the quarterback room, said, quote, "We felt like we have two starters in the building, which is rare in this league. If he has to go, I'm sure he will be ready to play," end quote, talking about Marcus Mariota. And that's just the vibe you get from everybody, whether they're being asked directly about Marcus playing for Jayden or not. Marcus Mariota, of course, spoke on Wednesday. We get the starting quarterback on Wednesday because of Jayden's injury and not practice and lack of practice, I should say. We did talk to Marcus Mariota. He said, quote, "I always try to approach it like I'm going to play that way. Nothing changed for me on a week-to-week basis," end quote. And again, having spoken to backup quarterbacks that were most likely get ready to play and get their first action of the season and all that stuff, a lot of times you sense some of those nerves or the anxiety and the anticipation of it all and all that. So Marcus Mariota, again, like you just watching him and talking to him in the locker room outside of getting questions about potentially starting for the first time this season, you would just think it was a normal day in the neighborhood for the Washington Commanders. And I think that's a very good thing. Nobody is acting like this is just like this catastrophic major deal. It feels like something that's much bigger of a deal on the outside of the building than it is on the inside of the building. Marcus, on his own health, he did go through those that training camp injury, those lower leg, his calf, and missed a bunch of time in training camp, missed preseason games, all that stuff. Marcus did say, quote, "I would say I started to kind of feel like myself over the course of the last couple of weeks," end quote. And he confirmed that he's fully back from the injury that took his training camp from him, which of course is also encouraging because while Marcus Mariota is not as athletic and not as dynamic, especially not as much of a runner as Jayden Daniels is at this stage of his career, right? Marcus was one of those types of guys at one point in time. He still has some capabilities and some wheels, right? Like the Dallas Cowboys learned that. The Carolina Panthers learned that when he had to come in and sub in for Jayden when he hurt his rib in that game last year. So Marcus Mariota still has some wheels to him, still has some dynamic ability. So the Las Vegas Raiders can't come into this thing and just say, okay, now there's a statue back there, and they still have to kind of be, cognizant of everything that's been going on. Marcus also said, quote, "What's been nice is we've been able to kind of keep things very similar regardless of who's playing at the position," end quote. And that just kind of goes into there. I have said on record, I'll say it again here, I think the biggest difference between the scheme with Jayden Daniels running it and Marcus Mariota running it is you're going to see probably less quarterback read option. It doesn't mean you're not going to see any read option. I just don't think you're going to see as much of it just because Marcus, again, still has wheels, but not so much that you can just kind of go to that well as much as you would with Jayden Daniels. Marcus Mariota also praised his connection with Kliff Kingsbury, talked about his love for, quote, being able to control the tempo of the game, end quote, within the offense. So a lot of reasons to have some confidence going into this weekend, even if it is, again, Marcus Mariota instead of Jayden Daniels, hopefully for only 1 week if it comes down to it. But even if it's for a couple of weeks with the Atlanta Falcons coming up, look, I mean, it's not actually a revenge game, right? But Marcus Mariota played for the Raiders, played for the Falcons. So, I mean, if you got to miss 2 weeks this season, those 2 weeks would be the ones that, at least from a storyline perspective, like Marcus is not staring into it. Marcus is not feeling it, the revenge, criteria there. But Marcus Mariota's success is directly tied to the players around him more than anything, which makes replacing the production and presence of running back Austin Eckler and winning the physical matchups in the trenches the team's most critical challenges in week 3. That and more coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you in part by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you ordered. These players delivered when it mattered the most. So let's break it on down. For the Commanders, the player who delivered this week before even taking a snap is quarterback Marcus Mariota. With Jayden Daniels' status uncertain, the team faced a moment of serious doubt. When the pressure was on, Mariota stepped up, delivered some stability to the team. The coaching staff confidence in him is quote unquote through the roof, and he's prepared his entire career, his entire season, even when he's injured, for this moment. He came through for his team with a steady presence and a readiness to lead, no hesitation and no delay. And just like Marcus Mariota delivering for the Commanders DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With the DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders also brought to you in part by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers, you can bet just $5, and if that $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use anywhere across the app. I love using FanDuel because it makes even uncertain situations exciting. With Jayden Daniels' status, again, up in the air, the focus shifts to Marcus Mariota. That opens up a ton of interesting angles on FanDuel. You can look at his player props for passing yards, for touchdowns, or even build a same-game parlay around him and wide receiver Terry McLaurin. It adds another layer of strategy to the game and gives you a reason to be locked in on every single snap. So no matter who is under center or behind center, it's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays. So if you're ready to dive in, if you're ready to join me and all the others who have played FanDuel, if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bets. The Commanders' chances this week depend on a committee of running backs filling the void left by Austin Eckler and their offensive tackles surviving an aggressive, relentless assault from one of the league's best pass rushers. Of course, we're talking about Maxx Crosby of the Las Vegas Raiders. I gotta be honest with you, you guys, every day, as you already know this, I'm a big football guy. I'm just a football fan in general. Like the fan in me is just a general football fan, all that stuff. Maxx Crosby, one of those types of players you absolutely look forward to seeing play in person. Now, because we talk about the Commanders, I cover the Commanders, I want to go into a winning locker room. I want to talk to a happy fan base. So hopefully we don't see too much Maxx Crosby, right? But I am a little bit geeked to be able to watch Maxx Crosby play this weekend. And I hope if you're coming to the game, you are a little bit too, because these are the great players of your generation that you're going to want to remember someday. Anyway, moving forward. So running back by committee. Look, the Washington Commanders have been a running back by committee, at least, going back years, right? I mean, even B-Rob and Antonio Gibson and all that stuff, right? So the whole rotational running back situation is really not very different, but this running back by committee might be a little bit different. But before we dive into that fully, again, Commanders offensive tackles against Raiders, defensive end Maxx Crosby, the entire pass rush in general, but especially Maxx Crosby. It's going to be Josh Connerly Jr., right? Josh Connerly Jr., the rookie right tackle out of Oregon, certainly had, a good enough day at least, right, in week 1 against the New York Giants. Week 2 was kind of a little bit of a welcome to the NFL moment for him and for his teammates. Week 3, let's see. You know what I mean? Every opportunity is an opportunity to get better. Every lesson is an opportunity to grow. And, certainly Connerly has gone through it, man, from facing the Giants pass rush in week 1 to facing Micah Parsons in week 2 with the Green Bay Packers and now Maxx Crosby. It's been an experience for Josh Connerly that I don't think he'll probably ever forget. So Crosby obviously is the focal point of the Raiders defense. Marcus Mariota, his former teammate with the Raiders, called him the quote-unquote heart and soul of the team, who is quote-unquote going to give it everything he's got every single play, which pretty much matches Maxx Crosby's reputation. Talked to Marcus a little bit in the locker room about, his Raiders teammate and former Raiders teammate, I should say, and all that stuff. And that's kind of where we got into the concept of this isn't a revenge game. Most of the players that Marcus played with there are gone. Most of the coaching staff, if not the entire coaching staff, is gone. There's only a few teammates, Carlson, their kicker, Crosby, and among them as well. But either way, it's not a revenge thing because he doesn't have any hard feelings towards those guys anyway. So the battle here that Coach Quinn described, Crosby, who is a quote-unquote absolute savage of a player with elite effort against rookie tackle Josh Connerly Jr., who Kliff Kingsbury says, quote, has his hands full, end quote. So at least we're not steering away from it, right? If you're coming from a Commander standpoint, at least you're not steering away from it. But you also are talking about the fact that veteran tackle Laremy Tunsil has been mentoring Josh Connerly Jr. a ton, helping him battle through this gauntlet of tough defenders he's gone against, end quote, quote unquote, from Kliff Kingsbury. And, I think that Laremy Tunsil presence is really important. They don't have lockers side by side, but their lockers are only separated by like 3 in the locker room. So they're very close to each other. They can talk whenever they need to, things like that. In fact, when Josh Connerly Jr. was doing his scrum, Laremy Tunsil was kind of talking to a couple of reporters in a group or whatever, and just kind of just emphasizing that, at the end of the day, man, like the job is the same no matter who the opponent is and several other things. But, It's something that's obviously going to be important, something that everybody's going to be watching. And yeah, you're going to get chips, right? You're going to have extra help there. John Bates, the tight end, I think is an underrated player on this team. We don't expect him to play either. He also is not practicing on Thursday, did not practice on Wednesday. So certainly steering into the direction that he's not going to practice with a groin injury. So, you're probably looking at, I would say, an increase in eligible tackle reps. So maybe Andrew Wiley comes in as an eligible tackle. He's technically an eligible tight end type of player, but he's obviously going to be coming in there to help block, chip blocks from your running backs, maybe in your wide receivers. Luke McCaffrey did a lot of chip blocking as a rookie last year. So there's a lot of various things that they can do to try to offset Maxx Crosby. He's going to win a rep here and there. Obviously, he's a great player, but the key is going to be to minimize the impact, even if you can't necessarily just eliminate it altogether. It would be really fun to come back here and talk about Maxx Crosby just being completely neutralized. The odds of that happening are not very good. The next matchup we're going to talk about is the Commanders secondary against Raiders tight end Brock Bowers, and we're going to kind of emphasize Quan Martin here. He's not going to be the guy. It's not like Quan is going to just shadow Brock Bowers, but obviously Quan Martin is going to be an important part of this defense, especially the secondary when they go single high, which is fairly common. He's going to be that single high coverage guy, so it's going to be on him to kind of keep the lid on the plays. You saw him on that 57-yarder against the Green Bay Packers. He's the one that ultimately didn't let it go for 58 yards or even longer, right? Had to get over there and help make that tackle. Still not a great play, but you want to have that top coverage guy out there to help keep things contained as best as possible. On Thursday, defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. called Bowers a quote-unquote dynamic young tight end that you quote-unquote have to almost treat him like a receiver. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to put linebackers on him. Certainly, you can still put a linebacker on him. You have linebackers that cover receivers and appropriate looks and all that stuff. But the strategic challenge that the Raiders use him both in line meaning he's attached to the line of scrimmage, hand in the dirt, 3-point stance type of thing, and then also split out wide, either in the slot or even completely out wide, like a receiver is, which can help the Raiders try to find those mismatches against maybe less athletic linebackers. Again, linebackers are going to have to cover him. It's going to be a thing, but the Raiders are going to do their best to try to get him against the least athletic of the linebackers, right? They want to get him on Bobby Wagner, who's a little bit older, maybe isn't going to be able to run with him as much, or maybe get him against a Jordan McGee, who's a little younger, inexperienced, might be susceptible to a double move or, be able to get picked or something like that. So the Raiders will be looking for those mismatches, which the Packers found really well in week 2. The New York Giants didn't find them as well in week 1. So again, which version are you going to get? I'm pretty confident you're going to get the more of the week 1 version, because again, a lot of these assignments that were blown in the Green Bay Packers are assignments that have been installed, assignments that have been taught, assignments that have been repped. They just, for one reason or another, on Thursday night, they got blown. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the blunt way to put it, is blown coverages, right? It was a major test for Washington's eye discipline, quote unquote, is what Coach Witt said in his Thursday press conference. Was pretty much what we've been talking about. So getting that eye discipline corrected, learning from those mistakes. The great thing about mistakes is, in the moment, it's kind of hard. You're in the weeds, all that kind of stuff. But after you come out of it, you break down the tape, you talk to the veterans, you talk to your teammates, you kind of learn what you did wrong, and then you go out there on the practice field and you apply the lessons to the practice field, and you get better. You know what I mean? And then you come out there week 3 against the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'll tell you right now, we've been talking about some tape studies and all this other stuff, but that vertical release tight end, the flood concepts, drive concepts, all this stuff, trying to get that tight end freed up on a vertical release. The New York Giants did it. The Green Bay Packers obviously did it. The Las Vegas Raiders, honestly, as far as pregame tape goes, the Las Vegas Raiders run that type of a concept more than either the Packers or the Giants that I watched before those games. And granted, we didn't have as much tape, but even going back to like the Giants in 2024, taking the Packers a little bit into 2024, didn't see those types of concepts nearly as much as we did from the Las Vegas Raiders in these first 2 games this year. So you're absolutely going to see these concepts, which makes sense because Brock Bowers is their best offensive player. Finally, the Commanders' interior D line, led by defensive tackles Daron Payne and Javon Kinlaw, I do expect him to kick out as an end every once in a while, more than he was before the injury to Dietrich Wise Jr. and the Raiders' interior offensive line. Raiders' O-line has been vulnerable so far this season. They've given up a total of 6 sacks through 2 games. And Javon Kinlaw has been a standout for the Washington Commanders. Joe Witt Jr. said after his week 1 win, quote, he was violent all over the place, end quote, creating interior pressure is the most effective way to disrupt quarterback Geno Smith, who has shown a tendency to throw the ball up for grabs. And if they can get pressure on him, especially up the middle, he will do the same against the Washington Commanders. Now, beyond the individual battles, this game is going to be decided by teams that have a little bit of a clash of philosophies on how they approach the game, where the Commanders' offensive versatility and defensive discipline must exploit the Raiders' inconsistency. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you in part by Square. This episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives along with them. After a long day covering the game at the stadium, there's a local spot I'd like to stop in Landover on the way home. The energy is still electric. You see fans in their jerseys, people talking about the big moments, usually, at least in the last year or so, celebrating the physical battle in the trenches between the O-line and Maxx Crosby. That's going to be a topic of conversation for sure. And it's in those neighborhood spots where the community really comes together after the game. So many of those run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world, and you can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. The Raiders' reliance on a boom or bust offense and a star-driven defense creates a clear opening for the Washington Commanders, who are more versatile and at times, I should say, outside the penalty box, a more disciplined approach to controlling the game. Just looking at the coaching staff, it's a more disciplined approach to controlling the game. Offensive philosophies, the way that these teams compare and contrast the Raiders' style so far this season has been inconsistent, prone to abandoning the run when trailing. The Las Vegas Raiders have called 43 passes compared to 16 rushes. That was just in the loss to the Los Angeles Chargers. So very clearly, this team will get pass happy very, very quickly. They've struggled on third downs, only a 34.5% conversion rate. And in the red zone, they only have a 33% touchdown rate, right? For the Washington Commanders on the other side, with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, the system, again, is going to remain very similar to what you see even with Jayden Daniels. And they're going to look to control the tempo. The scheme is built on versatility. Kliff Kingsbury said himself that the offense is at its best when everybody's attacking, end quote. So expect the Commanders to come out there looking to do that kind of a thing. The Commanders' advantage here is exploiting linebacker coverage. If you're the Washington Commanders, Las Vegas Raiders defense has shown a consistency to be caught vulnerable against pass catching running backs and tight ends, allowing combined 12 receptions in 2 games to running backs. They also allow Patriots tight end Hunter Henry to go for 5 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown, which I told Q on our Crossover Thursday episode sounds like a classic Zach Ertz stat line if I ever heard one. And again, the running back by committee, Chris Rodriguez says that he's an underrated receiver. Here's his opportunity to show it. Ja'Cory Crosby-Merritt, opportunity to show it. Jeremy McNichols, opportunity to show it as well, if they can lean on that just a little bit. Look, I'm a big fan of Devin White as a dude, but Raiders linebacker Devin White, I covered him with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's just never really been all that great at covering. You know what I mean? So get him in those mismatches, get him on Zach Ertz, get him on a running back, and exploit the crap out of that matchup. Looking at the defenses, the Raiders, they like to deploy an aggressive 4-3 base defense and rely on their front four to generate pressure for them while playing man coverage on the outside. Sound a little bit familiar. Very tough in the red zone. Have only allowed 2 touchdowns on 5 opponent trips inside the 20 so far this season. The Commanders' style, after the loss to Green Bay, Joe Wood Jr. said his unit is correcting that eye discipline problem that they had to prevent explosives. Joe Wood Jr. also said, quote, "The thing that's hard is you want to get right back because the only thing that gets this taste out of your mouth is a win. We have to show it. We can't talk about anything else. We got to go show it." End quote. And I will tell you right now, if you did not watch Joe Wood Jr.'s press conference on Thursday, he was not about the foolishness. In fact, there were some questions that he thought were a little bit foolish, and he did not have a little lot of patience for them questions. Okay, I'm not going to say mine wasn't one of them, but I'm just going to say there were some questions that he did not have patience for. I love Joe Wood Jr., man. I love that intensity. I love that focus. He's my kind of dude. I'll just put it to you that way. The Commanders' advantage here, capitalizing on mistakes. Cornerback Geno Smith had a disastrous week 2, completed 55.8% of his passes, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a 37 passer rating. If Washington's defensive front can generate pressure, we talked about it in the matchup section. If they can generate pressure, the secondary maintains their discipline, there are going to be opportunities. I joked on an earlier episode that they don't come up with at least one interception, that Joey Jr. should just tell them, don't get out of pads, don't leave the field after the game. We're running gassers until I'm tired. And the players are already going to be tired from playing the whole game. Obviously, I'm being hyperbolic. I don't expect that to happen, nor would I condone it. But you get the point. Geno Smith, he's always been that aggressive. He said in a recent press conference that he knows he's been overly aggressive and he's been putting the ball in jeopardy. He needs to fix that. Yeah, I got it, but that's kind of in his DNA. And if this Washington Commanders defense can get some pressure on him, especially in his face, he's going to put the ball up. I'm telling you right now, I'll make a little bit of a bold prediction. This isn't really something we're doing all year long, but I feel it. I just kind of feel it. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. Drive 3, Las Vegas Raiders possession number 3. There is going to be an opportunity for the Washington Commanders to intercept a pass. And I don't mean like, if you broke on, no, like it's going to hit a DB or a linebacker or somebody in the cold hands. You just got to see if they come up with it. That's the key. The opportunities can be there, but you got to come up with the interception. So we'll see if it comes true. But that's my bold prediction. Drive number 3. I'm being pinpointed with it. The Raiders' third drive, there will be an opportunity at an interception from Geno Smith. That's going to do it for today's episode. Next time on Locked On Commanders, I will be dropping my game plan. We're going to get a little bit more into the X's and O's and the schematics as I see it ahead of this game that's coming up tomorrow. In the meantime, if you got questions or comments, you can text them to me directly by becoming a Locked On Commanders Insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Not only are you going to text me your questions, your topics of discussion, your thoughts, but you're going to get plenty from me, additional information from press conferences, practices, and every once in a while you get a little bit of inside information. The insiders got a little bit of that on Thursday, which some of them found disheartening, some of them found interesting. We're going to talk about it more on our pregame Zoom that happens on Sunday before the game kicks off. So again, lots of fun stuff to get as an insider. Join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Get in on that there. Locked On NFL is giving you all the NFL news and information from a league-wide perspective that you need. Tyler, the Madman Roland, gives you a morning shot of espresso every morning. And Tony Wiggins is bringing you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns that you can get every afternoon. Locked On NFL is on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. To the everydayers, I see you. I appreciate you every single day. And I thank you again for coming through for yet another episode. Everybody out there, until next time, stay safe, be kind to one another. We'll talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.